Hi class. I thought I'd provide you with a brief video to complement your assigned readings for this week. The textbook and the lecture notes that you are reading do a good job of presenting market research in a general way, discussing its importance, how it applies to business as a whole. But the textbook and the other readings do not address a specific topic that I'll be discussing here today, and that is survey design. This is a condensed presentation of a much larger presentation that I give to small business owners from time to time as part of my consulting practice. And in keeping with online learning protocol, whereas my regular lecture is about an hour and a half, I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes for your viewing pleasure. Okay, so let's get started. And so I'm going to assume that you've done the readings, the textbook readings and other lecture notes, and you've already discovered that the market research process is a 5-step process. So we're going to assume now that you've already defined the problem, you've developed a research plan, and you're ready to do step 3, which is collect information. And you should also have learned by now that there are two types of market research. There's primary market research and there is secondary research. Primary research is research you collect on your own, and secondary research is data that's already been collected by somebody else. Survey design falls in the category of primary market research. And of primary research, there are several ways you can collect information. One of those is survey design. Or not survey design, but surveys you can collect data with. And one of the best tips of advice that I give to my clients, and that you can take from this as well, is that words matter. Or more precisely, wording matters. So for example, what's wrong with this question? Were you satisfied today with your service? Were you satisfied with your service today at Nancy's nail salon? Simple question, right? And you've probably seen these kinds of questions, and it's okay, they're valid questions, but only when you want a quick little measure of how things are going in the business. So what's wrong with this question? Well, for that, let's go to the next slide. Rarely is it that you are answering yes, I'm satisfied, or no, I am not satisfied. There are degrees of satisfaction whenever you're measuring this kind of stuff. If you ask a straightforward yes or no question, you not only miss out on valuable data, but you're potentially getting incorrect data. Because the yes or no question is too black and white. You're missing the gray area in between. And that's valuable data. Furthermore, a yes or no type of answer choice can yield incorrect or useless data. So you need to be able to capture the in-between, the yes and the no. There are degrees of satisfaction which are very important to interpret the research data. And you also could be potentially forcing a respondent into an untruthful answer. So for example, let's say you go to a restaurant and ask for your salad with the dressing on the side, and then later on the waiter comes over, but he brings you the dressing on the salad. After you're done, the restaurant owner, as you're leaving, asks you to fill out a survey. Now with the yes or no answer choices, you're being forced to answer one way or the other. I mean, the other parts of your dining experience might have been fine, but you still want to report in your answer that there was this particular little problem. And so while the restaurant patron was not terribly upset at the mistake, they might very well think they have to choose no to that question of were you satisfied at the restaurant. Or conversely, if they select yes, they might be yielding untruthful data for the restaurant owner. Don't forget, the restaurant owner wants complete, honest information. And so either way, you may end up getting bad data because you're not getting an accurate picture of what is occurring. So here's another question. Have you ever had a Starbucks coffee? Pretty straightforward, but there's still something wrong with this question. And by the way, this type of data, this type of question rather, is used to filter out respondents. If Starbucks is looking to measure some sort of customer satisfaction levels, let's say they redesigned their interiors, and they're looking to answer satisfaction levels down the line, this question would serve to filter out respondents that have not had a Starbucks coffee ever. So you want to get the people who answer yes to this question so that you can continue on asking questions relevant to the Starbucks experience. But still, what's wrong with this question? Well, you can conceivably end up with a respondent that will answer yes to this question, but in fact, they had their Starbucks coffee 20 years ago, right? So a better way would be to include a time frame. Okay, the better way to describe this, to write out this question is: have you had a Starbucks coffee within the last 6 months? And so time frame is important for these types of questions. And the time frame will help to make the question much more relevant to what Starbucks is trying to measure, because they don't want people who had their coffee 20 years ago to answer questions about the Starbucks experience today. How about this question? You've probably seen these types of questions where online surveys or even on paper-based surveys, you're asked to give comments and you write them inside this box here. This is what we call an open-ended question. But still, there's something wrong with this question. Here's the list of potential answers. My waiter took too long to bring the water. The food was cold. We waited forever. Yada, 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 right? How do you make any sense out of these potential answers? Well, first off, you can see from these sample answers that sometimes there's a pattern. Indeed, if you're measuring customer satisfaction, there will usually be a pattern. And the pattern here is there's an issue with the food. So this gives you an indication that there's something wrong. And so the answers relating to food can be lumped into one category. But what about the other answers? They're all over the place, and some are completely irrelevant. My point in asking about open-ended question is that yes, the data is valid and worth collecting, but be careful of the work involved in tabulating the data, putting it together in meaningful chunks, in other words, from the potential list of answers that we saw before. Because while the computer can easily tally up the answers to your closed-ended questions, where you check off a box or answer yes or no, it is you, the human being, that needs to sift through these open-ended, these answers to these open-ended questions and categorize them. In other words, interpret them in order to make any meaningful insights. If you have a survey with 10 to 20 people responding, that might be fine, but a true survey worthy of collecting good data is you're going to have at least 500 people or sometimes 1,000 people. And that's going to be a lot of work tabulating those open-ended answers. And so a better way is to guide your respondent by categorizing ahead of time the possible answer choices. It'll make your life easier as a researcher and also for the respondent, because they don't have to think through what they want to write out. They can just check off appropriate answers. And so here are some sample questions and statements regarding Jack's Restaurant. So let's take a few of these questions and construct a survey. And so now, remember our yes or no question from before? Isn't this a better way of collecting the data? It's a richer picture. We have here from the left to the right what we call a Likert scale. Likert scales are the ones you see where they may be asking you on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 meaning this and 5 meaning that, how likely are you to do this or that? So our question here is thinking about your recent visit to Jack's Restaurant. To what extent would you agree with the following statements? And along the left, we have where we're measuring the various attributes of the restaurant, and instead of a yes or no question, we are asking on a scale of 1 to 5 whether we agree with these statements. It's better data with a richer picture of what the respondent wants to say, and it yields better solutions for the restaurant. Here's another example of the Likert scale and how we're measuring degrees. In this question, we're asking, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not expensive at all and 5 being too expensive, how expensive do you view our printer selection? You're not asking straight out, are our printers expensive, yes or no, because there are degrees, especially when we consider our dollars, right? So these are the degrees along the bottom line. And more importantly, notice how we're framing the question over here. We're getting the respondent into that frame of mind where we're telling them that a 1 means this and a 5 means that, so that the less thinking that your respondent has to do and the more work you provide in order to easily answer the questions, the better data that you will get. Here's another question with similar type of Likert scale, and what I wanted to highlight here is the importance of always having a midpoint, because some people are going to be thinking they're going to be neutral in the question. They're not going to be swayed to one extreme or the other, as we see in this question. And so you've designed the survey, you've sent out the survey, you've deployed it, and now you got your results back, and you're ready to do step 4 in the process, which is to analyze the data. And if you recall from our prior slide where we were asking about printer selection and how helpful was the staff on the sales floor, recall that we asked that question on a 5-point scale. Had we asked it in a yes or no fashion, we may not have gotten the rich picture that we are seeing here. So here we begin to spot a problem where 33 people answered not very helpful at all, and 55 people helped somewhat unhelpful. And this is where when you're analyzing the data, you can begin to see insights which would otherwise not have been possible from a simple yes or no question. Well, I hope I was able to provide you with some insight into survey design. Again, this is a very small, condensed version of a much larger presentation I give, which can last up to 2 hours sometimes. I didn't think you'd be wanting to sit in front of the computer listening to my voice for 2 hours. So I hope these helped you, and that perhaps you can go to work tomorrow, and should you need to design a survey, you'd be that providing a better way to design the survey. If there are any questions that you may have, please do post them in our current discussion board topic, and I hope you got something out of it. Thanks.